Now we've moved a little closer. I want you to get to see those 6 panels on the top. The first thing, of course, that will strike you is the setting, the space that the artist creates. It's a fascinating one in which the natural world is essentially symbolic. You can see the different plants and how he presents them. And the human world is not particularly well built. So in other words, some of these little temples you see on the right side, there's a little temple, they're pretty rickety. So our artists in the year 1000 do not have any particular genius or skill as to how to make a temple in 2-dimension on this flat plane look like a real temple. They don't know anything about perspective, and that's just one thing. The figures, the human beings, are also, of course, the most interesting thing in each panel because, here, let's just go to this first spectacular panel. It's filled with abstraction. It's filled with symbols. It's not what one would call a realistic presentation. So anyway, there is the creation of Eve. So God is leaning over and bringing Eve awake. And she's just been brought out of Adam's rib. And here Adam's standing over there saying, I'm really glad to have her with me in the garden. It won't be as boring. And there's those little trees. Don't you just love their trees? They're interesting little sort of flower leaf structure. And then the space around it is empty. So you have this huge empty space and God and Eve and Adam over on the right and the trees. Isn't that great? And God and Eve, of course, are very, very abstract. Look at the design on the robes and the ribs, for instance. Look at Eve's body and her ribs. So that you can see these artists have no knowledge of Greek sculpture. They have no knowledge of what a beautiful Greek boy or girl might look like. And what they're creating here is a very rough approximation of the human body with a very great accent on the abstract pattern of the clothing. Isn't that amazing? That's the first panel. And then if we go down, here's another great one. Here's Adam and Eve meeting each other in the garden. God is standing right there with them and saying, here's your friend, here's Adam, here's Eve. Hope you have a happy life. And they just have their little hands out and they say, oh, welcome, welcome, and oh, how nice. They, of course, are very lightly clad because remember, in the Garden of Eden, you don't need anything. So they're still in, garden wear. They're in their garden wear. What you wear when you're out in the garden and you don't worry about your neighbor watching you. But I love the trees. I just love the way this artist is trying to show you the natural world. And it's nothing of realistic imagery. It's abstract idea. It's what he thinks he should do to show you a tree or a flower or whatever it is, or a flower tree or a flower tree. Of course, it's a fig tree, but it's a flowering fig tree. Look at those ends. Look at the ends of the stalks and the way the wonderful stalks pop up. Aren't they just great? So that's the top section. And then if we move down here, oh God, this is such a great panel. Each one of them, here's God with Adam and Eve. And of course, all of you people know what's been going on here in this garden. This is not what God told them to do. This is chicanery. And they've been up to chicanery. And look at the decoration down the sides. Look at those beautiful, beautiful decorative flowers moving up and down the side, decorative vines and things. They're very Celtic. It's like the old Celtic invaders have been kept in the imagery of the Germans and the German artists, and so they'll put it back in. And so there it is, that wonderful theme of those vines up and down the left side and up and down the right side. And then there's that charming little garden quacker down there in the bottom. See underneath the little devil? The little devil. I don't remember anything in Genesis about a little quacking duck. His little tongue is leading them to say, do bad things is what he's going to do. But so that's the devil. In this garden, in this particular garden, it's like a little quack devil. I mean, she's saying, well, he told me to do it. Isn't she? Isn't that what she's saying? She's pointing right at him saying, well, look at this little quack devil made me do it. And God is saying, oh, no, I told you, I warned you. And Adam, of course, is saying, well, she made me do it, you see. Predictable, right? Every man, he's saying, well, she told me to do that. And if we go down, those big, huge door openers are part of this casting when they did this. So imagine how hard that was to include that in the original casting. It's one piece. They had to cast it all in one piece and have those huge lions. But then, of course, then they get cast out. And here's them being cast out. So there's the angel with her beautiful angel wings and saying, get out. And then that little bush, that wimpy little bush, that's just the tiniest little fig bush. And there they are. But the great thing is the two of them. See, look at their bodies. Look at what this artist shows us, the human bodies on their way out of the gate. So this particular garden already has a little gate to it. Look at Adam's ribs. So it's like a spectacular abstract pattern. And then there's Eve. Just amazing. Just absolutely amazing. Lower down, we get to the bottom of the door. And there is the hand of God, you see, coming into Cain and Abel. And so they're making their offering of the altar. And there's the hand of God coming in. An amazing structure of the picture. A great one, a great work. There's the hinge. You see the hinge in the picture. And more flora and fauna. And there's the hand of God. So then you cross over to the other side and see the New Testament story. And the first one is the Annunciation. So there's the angel coming in. And it's an interesting work of art because you can see the city. You can see the loggia and the walls of the city and little domed buildings there back in the city. And then an arched loggia here next to it. And Mary and the angel. And Mary's little stool. See her little stool there in the niche? She's got a little stool she was sitting in, and the angel coming in from the right. If you look at this for the year 1000, if you think of, well, what do we know, about the year 1000? If you look at that artist doesn't really know, and it's not his fault, but because he's been living through the Dark Ages, with invasions and Huns coming at him from all directions. So he's hardly had time to go to Athens and study. But he doesn't know about perspective and distance in a picture. So you have a loggia there on the left side with the little arches, right? And then you have the wall, which looks like another arch, but that isn't what he meant it to be. It's supposed to be in depth. See, that's supposed to be going behind them. And then there's another loggia there. And then there's another little section of the city wall. But they don't do that. They're just little arches. So in this year 1000, what this tells us is that all of Greek and Roman art have been lost temporarily. That there's this huge gap. This is 1000. It's 500, 600, or 700 years since the height of Roman art. And these artists in the north, way up in Germany, are just having to start from scratch. And so you get these extraordinary images. Here's another great one. So we're going up the right side, up to the door opener. Here are the Magi, you see, coming to visit Mary. There's Mary over on the left side in her chair with her little baby. And there's the wall of Bethlehem behind them. And here come the kings, the three kings marching in. And there's that great, isn't that a spectacular form of that lion head? I mean, that is a great, devil, terrible, scary head, lion head, great, huge lion head. And then the next one is, of course, Joseph and Mary and their little baby. They're coming to the temple. So there they are. There's the temple on the left. And the structure of that temple is just fascinating. See the little curtains pulled back? What an interesting idea that this artist is, he thinks this is the temple, and there's his idea of the temple. Isn't that great? Oh, God, just think of this. 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, these people are trying to depict Mary and Joseph and their little baby. And, of course, their little baby doesn't look any more like a little baby than I do. He looks like a small man in a chair that's being carried, doesn't he? And that's true all through the Middle Ages. No artist figures out how to depict a baby for hundreds and hundreds of years. Not until really the Renaissance does anybody get a baby right. And that's because they didn't think of babies as living in babyhood. They just thought when we were born, we were people, see? And we're just real people immediately. Because there was no adolescence, there was no idea of spending 30 years going to college, none of that stuff. You just had to be ready to hit the ground running on your second day, you know. Well, kid, you're 2 days old, now get out there and get a job. That was the way the Romans and the Middle Ages thought. You know, there's no time for fooling around at JC College or anything like that. You just get out the door, your second day. Well, he's ready. He's ready. Mary and Joseph, they've got a son who's ready to go right out the door. Look at the way that he shows you their clothing with the patterns on them. This very, very abstract. It, of course, resembles Greek Madonnas from the East that he might have seen, Byzantine portable Madonnas, where, of course, that's how the Madonnas were and the Jesus were depicted, striations, big lines on their outfits. So there they are together, and then further up, we come to the upper section. These are the stories of Jesus, of course, and this one is Jesus before Pilate. So there's Jesus over on the left, being restrained by the soldiers. And here's Pilate on his throne. And look what's next to Pilate. You've got a little devil. So the devil helped Pilate do it. There's the city of Jerusalem and the wall of Jerusalem and the towers of Jerusalem, and the soldiers here. We, moderns, are so time-oriented that we would ask the question, oh, that picture, what date is that supposed to be? Oh, well, that's supposed to be 30 A.D. Well, was Christianity? No, it wasn't there yet. So those crosses shouldn't be there. So that's an anachronism. Nobody thought that ever before us. We're always fussing, about what's accurate. But in 1300, it didn't make any difference. If they were going to depict Jerusalem and it's Jesus going off to the crucifixion, they could have had crosses all over the picture, and that would have been fine with them because they didn't care about it. And they also don't know anything about outfits, of what someone in Jerusalem would have been wearing. And they didn't ask, and they didn't care. If somebody said, oh, well, soldiers in Jerusalem didn't wear hats, the artist would have said, I don't care. I don't care what they wore. Does it? Yeah, it doesn't matter. So here then, there's Jesus and the soldiers and Pilate. He's gesturing. The hands get very big, lots of gestures. You can see Jesus has big hands. Soldiers have big hands. Pilate has big hands. And there's that little devil. The devil made me do it. And then we move up to the top for a rather extraordinary crucifixion, because it is very simple, very, very, very simple. You have two men on either side, two soldiers. You have two followers of Jesus with halos, right and left, John and maybe Mary. And then Jesus on the cross. Look at the design of the cross, that braiding that runs around it. That's basically a Celtic theme that this German artist has retained from Celtic sculpture and Celtic art. So way, way before Rome, way before Greece, the two men with the two spears, which make, a diagonal, two diagonals, and then the very abstract figure on the cross. It's really an amazing work. So those are the doors. Finally, here's the angel at the tomb. Here come the apostles and say, where is he? And the angel says he's gone. There's the tomb on the left side with a nice little curtain tied up there. See the little curtain all tied up real nice on the front of the tomb. But look at the angel. Look at how beautiful the angel is. Beautiful, beautiful wings and huge hands, great gesturing hands. And there they are. And at the very top, of course, is the resurrection. He moves up. So you start out with the creation of the human being, and then you finish at the top right with the salvation of the human being. It's a great plan, just one of the most amazing works of art anywhere in the world. And it's certainly for the year 1000, which is where we are now in our studies, that is certainly one of the great works for us to be able to refer back to as we, in later weeks, start to talk about the art of the 1200s, the art of the 1300s, Gothic art, and other great works of art.